North Kent Sewer Authority was created in 1997, and the reason at that point our 5 communities wanted to take over operation and maintenance of the collection system. And the collection system are all the pipes underground that transport the wastewater from our communities to eventually a wastewater treatment plant. That was the reason we formed it in '97. Of course, as we traveled through our journey, the opportunity to build a new wastewater treatment plant presented itself, and we began to focus on that aspect of the authority, which turned out to be very successful. And now we're back to taking over the operation and maintenance of the collection system.
They had to figure out, what are you going to do with it? I mean, once you collect it and it goes into the pipes, where are you going to send it to be treated? Well, Grand Rapids had a substantial wastewater treatment system in down on Market Street, where the river, where the creeks and the pipes empty into the river. And they said, oh sure, we've got plenty of capacity, why don't you pipe it to Grand Rapids and we'll treat it and charge you for it, but you don't have to build your own plant. So that's where this all started.
This plant is very different than a conventional wastewater plant, and one of the things that we'll run you through is a quick process tour here. And I want to compare that first to maybe a conventional plant like most cities would have. Most cities would have a grit system to remove sand, primary tanks, activated sludge is real typical in Michigan, followed by clarifiers, and then some kind of sludge handling, because really you're making clean water in solids. At Parkside Clean Water Plant, we have one of the newest systems, and there's only 3 major ones in the state of Michigan. It's called a membrane bioreactor, MBR. And in this system, wastewater comes into the plant from all the communities through a series of pipes and pumps, gets here, is lifted up to a level, and goes through a grit chamber to remove any materials that will settle out, sand, grit. And then it goes through a fine screening process, and that screening process is 1.5 millimeters. So anything bigger than that is captured at that point. The wastewater then flows to an activated sludge system where the bacteria and biology actually convert and break down the wastewater. And then that water is separated through a physical barrier membrane. And this membrane is a 0.04 microns. And if you think about it, it's 1,000 times smaller than the diameter of a human hair. So the water, the clean water, is pulled through that membrane, and then it's pumped to a UV channel for second disinfection, because we really don't get bacteria through those membranes. It is a physical barrier. And it goes through UV treatment and then discharged into the Grand River, just kind of across from Fifth Third Ballpark. What's it take to maintain? The plant is actually operated by myself, assistant, and 4 operators. And we run the plant through the day, and then at night we have a computerized system that calls out problems to a person on call. It's continual maintenance program through the computer system. We typically, our budget for maintenance and operation of the plant is just under $2 million.
What we put in place, and a lot of new plants now put in place, is the 3rd step of a process, and I would call that tertiary treatment, where we take what comes out of the 2nd phase, and instead of just disinfecting it with ultraviolet rays or chlorine and then dump it in the river, and it's pretty clean, but you're not going to drink it, we would put it through a filter. Now, there's different ways of filtering, and sand is one of them. You can pour it through sand, and it'll go through different gradations of sand and gravel, and it'll come out a lot cleaner. You still might not want to drink it, but it's probably cleaner than a river. So this new technology that our engineer told us about, this microfiltration, is being used and has been used in the production of water treatment for drinking water. They take water out of the river or the lake and they run it through these microfilters, which they look like spaghetti strings, or maybe even a violin string. They're a little thicker than that, but they're like a straw, and they're maybe 48 to 6 feet high, and they're in bunches, cassettes and then modules, and there's like millions of them. I think there's like 22 million fibers in this plant. And it will filter out poliovirus, right? And so that's quite remarkable.
There is a whole host of other benefits that we've realized. The quality of the wastewater. We treat the wastewater, and then what we call the effluent goes back into the Grand River. Our effluent, which is about 3.5 million gallons a day, is drinking water quality. You can drink the wastewater. The City of Grand Rapids effluent is not drinking water quality. They're under a different permit. They have different technology, and so by removing 3.5 million gallons a day of wastewater from the Grand Rapids stream, which is, it still goes in the Grand River fairly dirty, and putting it through our plant, there's a huge environmental benefit to the Grand River, because now you have 3.5 million gallons of clean water going in as compared to $3.5 million of not so clean water gallons going in. But then, you know, I came here in 1995, and quite frankly, the relationship between the 4 townships and the city of Rockford was fairly toxic. We didn't get along very well. There were a lot of old wounds from annexations and different things that happened between our communities. We cooperate fantastically now, and so now you have 4 townships in the city of Rockford. We partner on their education, we partner on planning, we partner on other utility work. We work together on everything, and so this sewer authority has brought our 5 communities together. We trust each other, and it's really an example of intergovernmental cooperation where, you know, 10 years ago, not so much. We didn't get along very well. So that's been a very positive spin-off. We call each other, and we're there to help, which is the way it should be. But governments don't always act that way. So that's been a very positive outcome of the split. You know, one thing I would add, this was a very ambitious project, and when we started looking at it in 1998, the City of Grand Rapids did not think we could ever implement and construct a brand new treatment plant. You know, you imagine, you look at the North Kent Sewer Authority, it did not exist until 1997, and it's been phenomenal to be part of creating an organization from scratch. How many times do you get an opportunity to create an organization that has multi-million dollars responsibility, but even more so the environmental responsibility to take this wastewater, to treat it properly, and to make sure that there are no environmental impacts. It's been fascinating to be part of this. You go from an idea on paper to the facility that we have, and I'm sure you've seen the facility, or if you haven't, you need to go see it. We made a commitment to the residents of Plainfield Township that if we build this wastewater treatment plant, you would not be able to smell it, you would not be able to hear it, and it would be aesthetically pleasing. And we followed through on that commitment, because most people hear that we're going to build a wastewater treatment plant in your backyard, and it's a very industrial, very odorous endeavor, and we tried to do the right thing from start to finish, and we think we accomplished that. So we're very proud of where we are right now.
We want to go back and look at how the plant helps the community. We really need to look at the basis for why the plant was built and designed. Originally, all the sewage from these townships, Alpine, Plainfield, Cannon, Cortland, and the city of Rockford, flowed to Grand Rapids. And as the rates started going up and options for the future, they looked at what they could do to improve plant efficiency and also keep their rates within range. So that was really the basis as it came forward, and they decided to build their own facility and discharge into the Grand River. This plant has some unique building requirements because it's set in a location that's pretty residential. And of course, you want to be a good neighbor, and wastewater plants are not always good neighbors. And the main concerns were we didn't want it to look like a wastewater plant, we didn't want it to sound like a wastewater plant, and we didn't want it to smell like a wastewater plant. So a lot of the equipment here is put into the back part of the property, and there's a large odor control system that actually pulls the air out of the headworks area and the biosolids area where the solids are generated and treats it before discharge.
When this idea was crystallized and floated, we did some communicating through our newsletter, and I'm sure the other communities in the North Kent system did their own communicating with their residents about the status of our negotiations with Grand Rapids and some of the important aspects of what we were talking about. I think the only negatives really in citizen reaction to doing this were the people who live near the plant site. If you go out on I-96 or 196 towards Holland and Jenison, you pass the Wyoming and Grand Rapids wastewater treatment plants, and during the summers especially, there's an odor, and you tend to shut the vents of your car and roll up your windows if you have them down because it stinks. And the image of wastewater treatment plants in most people's minds is ugly, dirty, smelly. And so putting that right here along Coit Avenue, a stone's throw and a half from Northview High School, was looked at by a typical person as, oh, I'm sure glad I don't own property there. Or those who did own property is, oh, my property value is going to go way down and this is going to be a horrible thing and don't do that. Well, it's hard in a discussion like that because they came to township board meetings. It was in Plainfield Township, and they expressed those concerns. And it's hard to say, well, it'll never smell, because the truth is, stuff can happen in a process like that it might smell. But consistently, like some of the plants that I just described, no. And those who toured the plant and documented how it works and how it's built can demonstrate that it doesn't stink. So that part of the concern was addressed, but in an environment where it's still on paper and it's still just a concept, people have a tendency not to just trust local government officials when they say that this will happen or this won't happen. Show me. Well, show me means spending $50 million and making a commitment. But the result is this isn't a stinky place. Not only is it not stinky, it looks good. If you look at it from the road, I think that this enhanced the neighborhood as opposed to detracting from it.
So the plant was sized right now to treat 6 million gallons a day on an average day flow. We're getting just under 4. And so there is future there, future growth available for the plant. And it can be easily expanded. That's one beauty of membrane systems. You can increase the capacity easily in the future.
You know, I think we've proven the technology, and it's very new technology. When we started building this plant, we were one of the largest in the world. We're still one of the largest in the country, but this technology, you know, is now proven technology, and there's you know, there's such an environmental benefit. We've hosted tours from people around the world, you know, around the country. Certainly every month we've got people coming through. So any wastewater operator that comes to our plant is amazed at the technology we have. So yeah, I do think that we'll be a model for people.